As this competition grows, they become more and more desperate, and their stories become more and more erratic, and ultimately, the house of cards is going to collapse. We could possibly be facing the back end of the bell curve, the demise of the mainstream media, and there's a lot of reasons for it. But first, let's go back in time to May of 2016 when Vice CEO and founder Shane Smith said, "Expect a bloodbath in media." According to Digiday, Vice Media CEO held court last night with Hearst Magazine's digital media president Troy Young as part of Hearst Masterclass interview series. The hour-long chummy conversation first focused on the duo's Canadian roots before shifting into the state of the industry. Shane Smith said, "I don't think it's any secret that you're going to see a bloodbath in the next 12 months of digital, mobile, and terrestrial." Was Shane Smith right? Technically, no. Technically, yes. His time frame may have been off a little bit. We're not seeing massive layoffs. I think he jumped the gun just a tad. But we are potentially seeing, as I said earlier, the back end of the bell curve. That media spiked, it reached its peak, and now it's going to start going down. Let's start with Viacom. September 12, 2017, layoffs hit Viacom as TV Land Paramount Networks merge key operations. Spike exec VP Programming Tom Zappala will exit as TV Land's Karen Cummins, Scott Gregory, and Diva Newman add Paramount Network to their titles. As part of their effort, about 20 employees from Spike, which is being rebranded as Paramount Network, TV Land and CMT are being trimmed from Viacom's workforce. That's not necessarily a big deal. This sounds like layoffs happen, mergers happen, and when you have companies come together, when you have channels come together, there's some redundancies in staff. Some staff have to go. But let's keep moving because it does start to get particularly interesting. WWD reported layoffs hit GQ as Condé Nast cuts continue. Around 7 editorial staffers in print and digital were let go. Well, that doesn't seem like such a big deal. 7 people, that's not too crazy. The layoffs are part of the publisher's latest cost-cutting measures, which will ultimately slash around 80 jobs across the company. Some of the weaker magazines and divisions are expected cuts up to 20%. And Adweek has a story on this as well, but including Teen Vogue Print has been closed. So here we see they're going to be shutting down Teen Vogue Print. This is all old news. This happened a little while ago, and around 80 jobs. Teen Vogue did grow, according to Adweek, by about 250% in 2 years in an effort led by Philip Picardi, digital director for Teen Vogue and Allure, and Elaine Welteroth, Teen Vogue editor-in-chief. So that isn't to say that Teen Vogue is doing bad, simply that the print edition is going away. But I'm not making this video to entirely say that digital media is collapsing or anything like that, but just we're seeing different areas of the media take a hit. So far, if you're still with me, we've seen layoffs at terrestrial television, and we're seeing the shutting down of a print magazine, but it still gets worse. Let's keep going. Now, there's not any particularly big mainstream news sources on this, but whatever the site is, America's Closed, has written about Cracked.com layoffs, job cuts in editorial and video staff part of cost-cutting measures. It's no joke, comedy website Cracked has quietly laid off numerous staff members, including senior editors. Part of right-sizing, Cracked's business expense structure clearly means layoffs. Cracked isn't saying very much yet, but those let go have confirmed the humor website has laid off a number of writers, editors, including former managing editor John Cleese. But here's some more recent news, and here's where it gets serious. Ziff Davis has bought Mashable at a fire sale price and plans to lay off 50 people. Pete Cashmore is staying, he's the founder. Ziff Davis, a digital media subsidiary of tech company J2, is buying Mashable for less than $50 million, according to people familiar with the transaction. In the spring of 2016, Time Warner's Turner led a $15 million investment round that valued the company at $250 million. Mashable's new owners plan on keeping the site running, but want to refocus the company on tech and tech lifestyle content. That will mean laying off about 50 of the site's employees and offering other Mashable employees jobs at other Ziff Davis publications, according to a source familiar with the company's plan, who says founder Pete Cashmore will stay with the company. Not only are they laying off 50 people, they're going to be moving many people to other areas of the parent company, Ziff Davis. This is where we're starting to see the bloodbath in digital. 50 people, that's pretty serious. Mashable is a valuable company, but it's not that big. Interestingly as well, from $250 million valuation last year to being sold for less than $50 million, less than 20% of its value 1 year ago. We're also seeing significant layoffs coming to ESPN, with Sports Illustrated reporting that ESPN will lay off more than 100 staffers after Thanksgiving holidays. Is this all significant? A lot of it's normal business. Layoffs come and go. It's not necessarily a indicator of the collapse of media per se, but there's a lot of little stories here about varying degrees of layoffs. And now here's the big one, Buzzfeed. Buzzfeed is laying off 100 employees after missing its revenue goals. That's about 6% of its workforce. In a memo to his staff, Buzzfeed CEO Jonah Peretti described 2017 as a transformational year and said the company dramatically grew. But as the Wall Street Journal reported earlier this month, the company's 2017 revenue fell short of its target by 15 to 20%, and investors and managers are worried about its spending. Columbia Journalism Review has an article, Media's Complicated Relationship with VC Funding. They got 3 stories here. BuzzFeed will reportedly miss its revenue targets for this year by as much as 20%. And that's significant. The company had been talking about a public share offering next year, but analysts say an IPO is likely on hold due to its lackluster financial performance. After its most recent financing round in 2016, an investment of $200 million from NBC Universal that doubled the Comcast subsidiary's holdings in the company, BuzzFeed had a valuation of $1.7 billion. As analysts noted at the time, this number wasn't much larger than what the company was theoretically worth in 2015, which suggested it isn't growing quickly enough to justify a bigger value. Now we have Mashable. It has agreed to sell itself to Ziff Davis for about $50 million, less than 1/4 of what the company was worth recently last year. And finally, Vice. Vice is also likely to miss revenue targets for 2017. It had a theoretical market value of $5.7 billion earlier this year after private equity firm TPG invested $450 million in the company. Disney also has a significant stake, having invested $400 million in 2015. A lot of these digital media companies are operating off investment. There's a few big secrets that I can talk about. They're kind of poorly kept secrets, but for one thing, these digital media companies, they don't make enough money to justify their existence. You have to imagine someone making a listicle about Brad Pitt's hot bod. They're not going to make that much money. Granted, they're not paying their staff a ton of money. There comes a point where you just can't keep growing. So these companies bring on investment. They use that money to pay their staff to try and sustain themselves, to try and stabilize the company, to reach a point where they can pay their staff and continue this flow of traffic. But there's another poorly kept secret, and this is ad rights traffic buying. Many of these companies buy the rights to clickbait traffic from other websites. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically, if website A has 100 views, a company like Vice can buy the rights to those views and claim it's part of their network. So if company A has 100 views and company B has 100 views, company B buys the rights to claim those views and then says they have 200 views. So often these digital media companies are claiming to have significantly more traffic than they really do in an effort to secure more investment because they're not generating enough money to survive. So if we see media collapse, why would that be? Well, I have a few personal theories having worked in media. For one thing, these companies have to pay staff who are literally competing with people who produce content for free. BuzzFeed's gonna upload a video of a cute dog wagging its tail and chasing after a cat. But guess what? 10,000 other people did that exact same thing and didn't get paid for it. They put it up on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, and then it went viral. So yes, BuzzFeed has experts who can say, here's exactly how to make that viral video work, but they're still competing with thousands upon thousands of individuals who are not being paid to do it. In the long run, it's very simple what will happen. The company that has to pay for media, that's struggling to make money off this media, is going to lose out to the thousands upon thousands of people who aren't being paid and aren't asking for money to produce the same damn thing. And there are obvious ramifications from this struggle, and it's the fake news we see from the mainstream media. Certainly, we have seen the fake news from actual fake news websites who are exploiting this hole in the market. It's extremely cheap and easy to make up nonsense and get it shared far and wide and make a ton of money, which makes it increasingly difficult for actual media companies to maintain their credibility and compete with fake news. This is why so many people in journalism and digital media were adamant about stopping fake news in its tracks. Unfortunately, there's varying degrees of fake news. And when it comes to these big mainstream digital sites, they choose the hyper-partisan option, omitting facts and maybe lying or using assumptive language to make people feel a certain way. That way, the individual is more likely to click on this hyper-partisan, extremely emotional content so they can generate the traffic they need to survive. Essentially, these companies are going to put out content that drives people crazy, because if they put out a story saying, here's a reasonable approach to what's happening, no one's going to click it. But if they put out a story about some extremely sensitive social topics in politics, politicians, our current president even, then they know people are going to click it, and that's how they're going to make money. But as the competition grows, these companies are literally going to compete with every single person on social media. As this competition grows, they become more and more desperate, and their stories become more and more erratic, and ultimately the house of cards is going to collapse. Do I think Shane Smith was wrong? I think Shane Smith was right. I think he got his timetable a little off. He was jumping the gun, but I think we're going to see this collapse happen. There's a reason why I focused all of my work onto my personal brand, the Timcast channel, my second channel, my Twitter account, and it's because I don't think that a big company can maintain credibility over individuals as we move into the future. I made a mobile app called Tagly, Tagg.ly, with a business partner of mine, Isaac. This app puts your name in your photos instantly. You can pull up the app, you can set the date, location, the time, and whatever text you want. The point of this, and we made this in 2013, was because we were telling people, listen, individuals hired by your company are starting to have more influence than the company itself. Certainly there are big news companies like the New York Times with massive Twitter followings. But when it comes to these digital media outlets, some of these outlets have a couple 100,000 followers, and they hire people with millions of followers. The individual has significantly more influence because there's a reason why you would trust an individual over a company. A company is full of holes. It has a bunch of people you've never heard of. You don't know who they're supporting or why. You don't know who's running that company. But when you look to an individual, you say, they are consistent, I understand their logic, I understand their point of view, and this is why I follow them. I think in the future, we are going to see individual-based content supersede, become more powerful and more influential than big media brands. And this means there will be a bloodbath in media. This means these companies are going to continue to lay people off, because not only do they have to compete with the individual, but individuals can launch their own companies. And so a company like Vice, like Mashable, like Buzzfeed, has to compete with the 10,000 other microblogs. There used to be a point where media was a broadcast tower. There was one tower broadcasting the information down to all the people. And as time went on, it slowly flattened out. And with the internet, we're going to come to a point where there is no one group more influential than the other. Certainly, there will be blips here and there of people who have a slightly significantly larger following. But ultimately, I think it's going to come down to people. Do you trust an individual? Is this person worthy of your trust, and will you talk about their work? And we're going to see more individuals who produce content on their own brands, their own accounts, more so than we will see with big media companies. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Is media dying? This is a really interesting time. Seeing these layoffs, seeing these companies fail to hit their projected revenue. And it has a lot of people wondering what's going to happen next. So comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you'd like to support my work, go to timcast.com/donate. Give whatever you'd like or give nothing at all. My videos are always free and available every day at 4 p.m. Make sure to check out my second channel in the link below, because I will have more commentary. It's my backup channel. And so I just want to make sure everyone knows it exists in case anything happens to this channel. And I also put more commentary and direct social interaction kind of stuff. It might be skateboarding, who knows? But again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.